My name is Aida Nanyonjo. I'm a project coordinator of the Down Syndrome project here at Inclusion Uganda in Uganda. I want to thank everyone for joining in. We are looking forward to sharing this report with you. We did a case study about the employability of persons with intellectual disability here in Uganda. So we want to share with you our findings, and we are looking forward to hearing from you any feedback or any ideas about this report. Thank you so much for joining in. I would like to call upon Veronica to present the summary of the report. This is our agenda. This is a launch meeting on the 24th of January, 2023, about the best practices on employment of persons with intellectual disability, a case study in Uganda, which we did last year. First, we're going to have the welcoming remarks, which we've already had from Ida, that is me. Then about Inclusion Uganda from Moses. Then a presentation from Veronica, reactions from all participants, and Ida will be managing that is I. Then we shall have communication from self-advocates, mainly Samuel, and then we shall have the closing remarks from Primrose, who is our director, Inclusion Uganda.
Hello, everyone. Hope you can see me now. Sorry, I'm in the field.
Yes, we can see you clearly.
I'm in the field, so I'll try to be brief. The network is not good here. My name is Kiria Moses, and I'm the head of programs at Inclusion Uganda. Thank you, Aida, for the warm invitation. And I'm here to tell you a brief background about Inclusion Uganda. Inclusion Uganda is a non-government organization that works with people with intellectual disability. We've been in existence for now 39 years, providing support, advocacy, education, parent support groups, and others to people and parents of people with intellectual disabilities. Inclusion Uganda is in Uganda, and as we speak, we are now in over 22 districts. And in every district, we are operational in at least 3 sub-counties. We have a big number of self-advocates that range in different intellectual disabilities. For example, Inclusion Uganda works with people with hydrocephalus, with Down syndrome, with cerebral palsy, and others. So we tap in all intellectual disabilities. Today, our main emphasis is on Down syndrome, which a project we've been running for now over 2 years, having our advocacy group in Kampala. When choosing this group, Inclusion Uganda basically looked at 3 districts nearing Kampala, PG, and then Wakiso, plus basically 4. So we got our participants from these 4 districts, and we've been doing advocacy work where we came up with a group of 12 self-advocates that are now at least empowered to speak on behalf of others. These advocates are now employed. The majority of them are now employed, and they have done a tremendous work to push back other self-advocates to school, to inspire others, and then inspire parents themselves. In our advocacy group, we started with 12 self-advocates, but unfortunately, we lost 1 in the course due to heart failure and internal failures. But as we speak, the 11 have moved on very well, and they are empowered to start up businesses, to acquire employment, and to do other advocacy activities, as you will see. Yes, Inclusion Uganda is still operating is still running this advocacy group, and we are in touch with the parents who have been really helpful in this advocacy group, and then the employers, because we targeted to meet some employers to see that we link some workers, some self-advocates to employment, which has been a good thing, because we've managed to see that most of the advocates, the self-advocates that have not been employed but have had acquired skills, are now linked to the available employment opportunities. And I believe through this project, we've tried to see that we bring closer the employers near to the self-advocates, and then link the parents to the employers to see that even us, people with disabilities, people with Down syndrome, can participate in the employment sector. Thank you, Ida.
Thank you so much, Moses and Ida. Well, my name is Naxu Veronica, and I work as the Project Controller for Human Rights Advocacy under Inclusion Uganda. So last year we had that opportunity, I and Ida, to carry out research on best practices in employment of persons with intellectual disabilities, a case study in Uganda. So I've shared my screen. Let me hope that everyone is in your notes. You can raise up your hand. Uganda is live. But why are people living with disability not opportunities to compete favorably in the job market? Uganda is an African population approximately 48 million people. Data. The Uganda Bureau of Statistics Census report, that is UBOS 2016, indicated that 12.4% of the Ugandan population lives with disability. This implies that approximately 4.5 million are persons with disabilities. Yet only a small fraction live independently because most of them lack financial stability. So as I said earlier on, this is just a summary of the report. We have a full detailed report. This article focuses on barriers faced by persons with intellectual disabilities in accessing employment in Uganda. However, we employed two methods while we were conducting this research. We did interviews, face-to-face interviews, we administered questionnaires to participants. We also had focus group discussion. We had Mukono, Luero, Bukoma, Simbi, and Tororo involved in the study. We interviewed 25 employers, and these were both from the formal and the informal sector. We also had 25 persons with disabilities, intellectual disability, as well as 30 parents or support persons. So these are the questions that guided our research. There were 4 questions, and the first one was, how compliant are the national employment policies to the provisions of the UN CRPD on employment of persons with disabilities, regardless of the nature of disability? Research was, we looked at the attitudes of employers towards employing persons with intellectual disabilities. What are the attitudes of parents towards employability of their sons or daughters with intellectual disabilities? And lastly, what are the attitudes of individuals with intellectual disabilities towards employment? So answering the first question, we looked at a Ugandan government signing the UN CRPD in March 2007, and being CRPD was put under the Disability Act in line with Article 30 Constitution. In full May, created awareness on the UN CRPD, translated it into 2 local languages, and also equipped the local authorities with of persons with disabilities in the general community. domesticating the UNCRPD, the majority of the districts had not taken up this role, mainly due to lack of understanding of their respective district levels. The National Disability Council and other organizations for persons with disabilities therefore need to explain the UNCRPD and sheets of implementing the convention to the economic growth of that as stipulated in Article 27 of the UNCRPD. So the country therefore faces a significant challenge in implementing effective and efficient disability services and policies due to a significant implementation gap, hence the need for advocacy. So on this slide, sorry, let me take you back. We have relevant legislations that government has put in place to protect persons with intellectual disabilities. One of them is the 2007 Equal Opportunities Act. This emphasizes equality of opportunity and treatment. Then we also have the 2006 Employment Act, which promotes dignity and equal opportunity, intellectual disability, of course, inclusive. We have the 2000 Workers' Compensation Act, an act to provide for compensation of workers for injuries suffered and scheduled diseases incurred in the course of their employment. And we also have the 2008 Business Technical, Vocational Education and Training Act, which helps to provide relevant knowledge, values, and skills for purposes of academic progression and employment in the labor market. All these acts put into consideration persons with disabilities. So what are the perspectives? What are the perspectives of employers in employing persons with intellectual disability? In general, persons with intellectual disabilities, and this was actually what's in the formal sector. So we found out that few of our persons with intellectual disabilities were employed in the form. In addition, the employers would at least consider employing persons with physical impairments as compared to those with intellectual or psychosocial disability. We were still talking about the responses that we got from employers in the formal sector, and most of them considered persons with intellectual disabilities being less productive than people without disabilities, and hence, because most of them were not in position to incur extra costs that would come as a result of reasonable action. So employers' rights towards persons with intellectual disabilities, including concerns that they are dependent, they are non-competitive, and at times violent, with poor interpersonal skills, and sometimes helpless. And then lastly, they held concerns that customers will react negatively to employees with intellectual disabilities. So in addition, they fear that co-workers may fear the negative effects of increase in their workloads as a result of working with an individual with intellectual disability. Individuals without disability also had the wrong perception that some disabilities are contagious and that they all have poor hygiene. So those were our responses from the employees that we came across. So these were our responses from the parents that we came across in the focus group discussions. Parents in the urban settings told us that these children have gained skills. Sorry, they said that they have not gained the necessary skills and do not have enough capital to promote their children in the employment sector. So I think this came as a result of most of the parents don't take their children to school. So most of them are not as effective as other persons with no disabilities. And then also parents told us that they were also concerned with society having negative attitudes to their children and the lack of accessible environment at the workplace. So most of these parents were not willing to give out their children for employability. Then parents in the rural settings said that schools have not been accommodating persons with intellectual disabilities despite the government's effort to enforce inclusive education. Yes, there are laws that persons with disabilities have a right to education, but most schools are not accommodative to compete in the available job market. They also urged that schools have not equipped them with the required skills that they think. We have Latifa, who is a self-advocate. She would like to be a chef, but the school she attends does not have a catering department, and her parents cannot afford to take her for vocational, the kind of work and employment they would like. Persons with intellectual settings, they told us that society has a negative attitude towards them and views them as people who are helpless and are not capable of working independently, just like the rest of the community. This has also limited them from expressing themselves fully and utilizing their full potential. And most of them said that they are constantly rejected by employers due to discrimination, which lowers their confidence and self-esteem, in turn preventing them from looking for other employment opportunities. They also urged that they are exploited in the workplaces. They are given a lot of work, and in turn they are given very little wages. And some employers even send them off at the end of the day, promising to pay them in the near future, a promise they do not keep. So this is a very beautiful picture of one of our self-advocates, Samuel Mugabe, selling his homemade cookies we held as Inclusion Uganda last year. So these are the recommendations that employers told us about. Employers should increase their understanding of intellectual disabilities and the potential of persons living with Down syndrome and intellectual disabilities at large. They also need to focus on creating more inclusive workplaces. Recommendation from parents. Parents need to support their children to acquire skills that will enable them to obtain jobs either from the formal or informal sector. They also need to build confidence and self-esteem in their children and also support them to be more independent and engage freely in all family matters and the community at large. And lastly, to look for employment opportunities for their children in which they are qualified. This was the way forward from persons with intellectual disabilities, mostly those living with Down syndrome. There is a need for persons with intellectual disabilities to understand their rights to work, a right to being employed. Then persons with intellectual disabilities also need to be confident in expressing their views, their needs, and their strengths and weaknesses. Then for the policymakers, there is a need to generate statistical data from different regions of Uganda to determine the actual levels of employability of persons with Down syndrome and intellectual disabilities at large. So there is still a gap there in the statistical data concerning persons with disabilities, but majorly those with intellectual disabilities. Then there is also a need to involve government officials in the research to determine challenges in the implementation of the Uganda's employment policy and Article 27 of the UN CRPD. So in conclusion, persons with intellectual disabilities in Uganda are more likely to be unemployed than their peers without disabilities, especially youth and women. Persons with intellectual disabilities tend to work in the informal sector rather than the formal sector. In most cases, they are discriminated against and exploited in work. Much more needs to be done to ensure that persons with intellectual disabilities are able to fulfill their rights, to gain a living by working freely. Much more needs to be done to ensure that persons with intellectual disabilities are able to fulfill their right to gain a living by work, freely chosen or accepted in a labor market and work environment that is open, inclusive, and accessible to persons with disabilities. Acknowledgements, Down Syndrome International, International Disability Alliance, Inclusion Uganda staff, and participants who are involved in this research. Thank you all for listening and viewing. Once again, we are sorry for the internet issues. Thank you so much. Aida Nanyonjo, I hand back over to you.
Thank you so much. There's a question that was saying that what is the criteria of selecting advocates? We don't actually select the advocates, but we empower persons with disability to become advocates for themselves and also for other persons with or without disabilities. So I don't know whether that is answered. Alain? Then someone also asked that of the 11 advocates, how many are employed? As of now, 3 of them are employed. Someone is asking, can you please explain the difference between formal and informal sector? Now, the formal sector is basically when you apply for a job that you actually are qualified in, you're even certified in that field. And as they give you the employment, you're given an agreement or contract that contains a number of terms and conditions. So that is basically what we call the formal. Then the informal is normally, it's not long term, it's normally short term. For employment, as long as you have that form that you might not be certified, you don't have a contract, and then you're paid at the end of the day. So that is basically the difference between formal and informal sector. Then someone is also asking how much has been done in local community level to enable inclusion for all. I would like to invite Moses to talk about this.
Okay,
Yes,
thank you. Thank you, Ida. First, I'll go back to a question Ida's answered, where they asked about how many people amongst the 11 have joined the formal sector or in employment. Yes, there are 3 in the formal sector, but the other 8 of them, they are in the informal sectors. They are employed, but in the informal sectors. So we saw that we wanted to see that everyone as an advocate in our group is somewhere, somehow. So however much we wanted the formal employment first, but yes, we got only 3 to the formal sector. The another question Ida wanted me to talk about was what we've done at the local level, the community level. We've tried to empower the parents themselves, and we've done advocacy sessions where we've gone to schools, we've gone to churches, mosques, and gatherings, community gatherings, and we talk about advocacy. We talk about the rights of people with disabilities, particularly we see how best we can include them in the community, and we talk about their inclusion as people with disability, as being part of the community. That we've done through our 2 years in this project. And then we've seen some results, because many questions have been coming back to our offices. How can we include them? What can we do to see that they are involved in the community participation? So I would say, to a bigger extent in the community, we've tried to do awareness, people to know that people with Down syndrome exist and they are part of us, and we should work with them. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Moses. I think that is well answered. We have another question here. Lynn is saying, we have similar employment issues for individuals who have Down syndrome. How can you address the change in biases with employers? How are you getting updated information on the capabilities of people who have Down syndrome? Okay, we do advocacy. We go and talk to the employers. We call them for meetings. Where possible, if allowed, we give them trainings about how they can work with people with intellectual disability. Yes. And then how do we know about their capabilities? As I said, we have our group. We know Samuel can bake cakes, and we know Ian can paint, can spray cars and motorbikes. So we know what they can actually do, so that we can easily incorporate them. We can easily look for employment for them because we know what they can do. We've seen them do it. We've been at their respective workplaces. We've seen their work. So we know what they can actually do. And that is how we try to, try to incorporate them into the employment sector. Moses, okay. Okay, then, hello, another question by Kinga. Please, could you clear to me what is the difference between the formal and informal? I missed it, thank you. I talked about the formal sector is actually when you're actually qualified for the job, certified for the job, and you're given a contract. In receiving the job, you're given a contract. And then the informal sector, normally, it is, you're not really, you might might not really be certified and you're not contracted. And normally it's for a certain period of time. The payment terms and conditions are not laid out. You just talk about it. It is basically oral. You say, I'm going to give you this amount of money for, I'm going to give you 5,000 for you to wash my car. Because we have a self-advocate who does that. It's called Salim. I'm going to give you 5,000 for you to wash my car. Would you take it or not? I'll take it. Then you wash the car. Then for the formal sector is when someone actually works, for example, in the kitchen, caters in the kitchen, is contracted, and at the end of the day, he's given a wage or a salary as per the contract. Thank you. Another question. Could you please share with supports, which supports they are offered at the workplace? Also, if the employers were sensitive about employing them. Yes. What support could employers provide? Moses, can you please take this up?
Actually, as we said, people with disabilities, we differ in the support we need, because you may find someone who needs a wheelchair may need different support. Someone who can't see needs a different kind of support than someone who doesn't hear. So when we are working with employers, we tell them about reasonable accommodation. So within the reasonable accommodation, the employers should see how best they can help that person so that he can perform just like any other person. So the different support may differ according to the person they are employing. For example, for Ian Wafula is one of the employee in the formal sector. He works in a garage as a mechanic and spraying cars, but the boss actually didn't know that, so he gave him less work. He would then just sweep the garage and will pay you on a daily basis. But when you talked about reasonable accommodation, how can we support him to do? Because we saw potential in Ian, but the boss didn't see that. So when you talked about reasonable accommodation, we told them if Ian can get his own spray gun, and given more extra time to spray a car or to spray a door, he will do that, but with the support, you have to direct him, do this, do that, and so that's the support he needed. So you may find that in the employment sector, different people with different disabilities may need different kind of support. So it's upon the employers and the support people to know how best they can help that person to see that he can perform better. Thank you, Aida.
Thank you, Moses. I think that is what we had. Hope I did not miss anything. Yes, we're going to share. We're going to share this report on our website. It will be there, but still you can contact us, Inclusion Uganda. We can share it personally, and we are going to publish it officially. Our lead self-advocate, Samuel Mugabe, wanted to share. Hello, Samuel. How are you today?
My name is Mugabe Samuel from Inclusion Uganda, Down Syndrome International. I'm a baker. I bake cakes like wedding cakes, birthday cakes, wedding cakes, and daddies. I went back to school to a course, art and design. I do craft shoes, necklaces, earrings, bags, craft shoes, and doormats. Last year, I went to Rwanda to share with others. I met my friends like Nathan Lowe, Robin, Simon Peter, and others. I enjoyed.
You enjoyed.
I learned more.
Okay. Anything else?
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I think that is it. I would like to call upon Primrose to give us a closing remarks.
Thank you, Aida. I'm Paul Nabukalu Primrose, Executive Director, Inclusion Uganda. I want to really thank Aida for being a good moderator, plus Veronica for the good presentation. Thank you, Samuel, for giving us an insight about the Rwanda visit. At least we have gotten some light for some of us who did not attend. My gratitude to Down Syndrome International, who have been partners with Inclusion Uganda for the last 2 years. And we really look forward to working with you again for any other project that can really benefit our beneficiaries, especially those persons living with Down syndrome. We have really had a great impact. They have really had a great impact, and their lives have really changed for the period we have worked with them. Yeah, and we are still in contact with them. They keep on, what is new now, what is new, and we are really looking out for more projects to work with them. Thank you very much for the good presentation. Yeah, that is all I had. Back to you, Aida.
Thank you so much, Primrose. Thank you so much, Robin, for the preparation, and Nathan. And thank you so much, everyone who has attended.